Hey, everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and this is Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it's Friday, so you know what that means. It's Friday. Hey. It's Saturday, Sunday. What? Well, wasn't Fat Waffle Friday. We went to, I can't say where we went because they didn't pay for it, so you're not going to get it. But we had croissants today with the kids with no Fat Waffle Fridays. I'm Ron Johnson. That's Julia Daniels. I don't see the cat. No cowboy today. Oh, there he is. We got Sam Ekstrom, the producer who does it all, and then also Reggie Wilson, sports director from Care 11 Sports, also avid LeBron James fan, Lakers follower, the 9th seed in the NBA right now. And they are the scariest team in the West. We don't want to, yeah, right. Had to give Reggie a little bit there, but no, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about, there's a lot of stuff going on in sports right now, but the Minnesota Vikings are making some big time moves. But before we get into all that, we got to get locked in on this show. Julia, what you got for us?
We're talking about the free agents. Who's our favorite? What's our favorite move here in free agency? We'll have all our opinions.
Trade. The Vikings are making moves. They tweeted a picture of Kwesi on the phone like the Wild with Bill Guerin. They're cooking. What are they doing? We'll talk about it.
Wolves dropped to third in the West. They've got 17 games left in the season. Do we value their health or winning the West? What's more important to us? Let's get into that.
And like I said, there's a couple teams in the West that the Wolves don't want to play. We'll talk about who you least likely want to play and why. But also, we got to talk about women's basketball, men's basketball. It's kind of be a doubleheader question for that one. One, is the women's NCAA tournament more important to watch this year than the men's? And then the Gophers women's and men's basketball teams are done now. The season's over for the Big Ten tournament, at least for each of them. And how do we grade these coaches and these teams in this season? But I want everybody to know, for the everydayers, we thank you. Please continue to like, share, download. Let us know what you think. Also, our question of the day is, what do you like the most about the Vikings free agent move so far? So let us know that on Twitter and whatever you watch it on. If you're on you want to comment on YouTube, feel free to jump on YouTube. You can comment on our shows there. You can also go on Instagram when a video pops up. You can comment there. You can follow us on all platforms. Just search Locked On Sports Minnesota. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers, join today and you'll get $200. That's $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And you just have to visit FanDuel.com/locked on. That's FanDuel.com/locked on to get started today. Well, with all the sports talk, we got the Minnesota Vikings. Everybody is watching, and it's been like a free agent frenzy. I was able to be at the Vikings facility yesterday to record some stuff. Got to see a couple of the players, talk to Blake Cashman's agent, and there's a lot going on. So we'll talk about that. But we have to talk about the breaking news. Sam, where's the sounder?
Working on it.
Because you got it. Here, let's get to that. Reggie, take it away.
Trade. The Vikings have traded up to get back into the first round again. So now they have 2 first-round picks, all right? They traded with the Houston Texans. Minnesota receives pick 23 and 232. And then Houston will get the Vikings' 42nd pick, their 188th pick, and then a second-round pick in 2025. So the Vikings have 2 first-round picks now at 11 and 23. What does it mean? It means that they could possibly package those picks and move up into the top 5 to take their quarterback. But then, look, I was at the press conference yesterday. Kwesi, Kevin O'Connell, they both made no type of commitment one way or the other about trading up to get a quarterback. They kind of made it seem like it was nonsensical to even allude to the fact that they would do something like that, when the whole room knew Sam Darnold is not the only answer to that quarterback room. They're going to trade up to get someone. And this trade today pretty much just all but proves that fact. The interesting thing is, though, you have top 3 picks who all will probably take quarterbacks, right? In Chicago, in Washington, and New England. Do they trade up to 4 with Arizona to get the best next QB available? or do they go to 5? Still hope for the same. I'm seeing people talk about JJ McCarthy. One thing that I did think was interesting about this trade, Jordan Reed from ESPN, the draft guru, he said, love the move from Kwesi. The Vikings are clearly loading up for a trade up to a QB in the draft. They're also a Dalton Reisner or KJ Osborne signing away from acquiring 2 extra third-round comp picks in 2025. Cousins, Hunter, and then one of those 2 signing with another team. So giving up next year's second rounder was an easy decision. So that's the thing. Next year they don't have their second rounder, but they could possibly package a couple of those third round picks to move up in the second round next year if they so choose to do so. But also they could just stand pat with 3 third-round picks and make those are still considered some of the more premium picks, but we're not talking about next year. This year, though, it has to be a quarterback, right? Right, Julia?
Well, what was I joking about before we hopped on recording? I said, yeah, they're just going to trade up so they can go get Marvin Harrison Jr. and then they can trade. This is outrageous. I don't actually believe this is going to happen. Then they can trade Marvin, JJ, and Jordan Addison for Patrick Mahomes. And then they need some receivers over there. But, what good are those receivers if you don't have Patrick Mahomes? Anyways, yeah, I think it's interesting to see if 23 and 11 will get them into the top 5. We'll see who's willing to make a deal about that because those top 3 picks in particular are looking for quarterbacks, I believe. So we'll also see what quarterback they're going for because I'm not sure I have a lot of confidence in trading that far up for JJ McCarthy. I don't know how I feel about even picking him if they go number 5 in that sense. I think, Reggie, you talk about how Michael Penix is your draft crush. I think that's a likely sentiment among other Vikings fans. It may not be as vocal, but I think that would be a great pick for them. Or Drake May, if they get high enough too. I don't think they'll have a shot at Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels if they do move up. But I think you're right in saying it's pretty obvious what they're doing here. They're building draft stock so that they can move up even further. And I would say a great move, too, because they didn't have to give up any first round anything for this either. So, yeah, I root for the chaos. I'm excited. I think this is something that we talked about weeks ago when we said pick up a veteran free agent. Veteran Sam Darnold. He's not as old as everyone acts like he is. And then draft a rookie quarterback who can possibly be your long-term solution. So this is all very fun. It's all very interesting, and I love the drama. Sam?
Yeah, there's one wrinkle here that's just a little bit of a bummer in that, okay, you've given up your second. You didn't have a third already, and you're probably going to have to package both of these firsts to go get number 4 or number 3 or number 5. So basically, you're going to get 1 pick in the first 3 rounds, and that's it. It's going to be your quarterback. So you're not going to have a pick on day 1 or day 2 to build your roster up. But this is the expense of doing business and getting a talented rookie quarterback in the NFL. You got to give up a lot. So while you're not adding a ton of talent this year, you keep your first round pick next year. Like potentially, that could be a major win. I'm looking at the old Jimmy Johnson trade value chart, and people say this might be antiquated, but just based on the figures I'm seeing, 11 and 23 are worth more than number 4. So in theory, you could go get number 4, and they have to give you something back, like a 3rd or 4th round pick. In theory. So I think they've got plenty of ammo now to move up, and I'm wondering if they can kind of leverage the Cardinals and Chargers against each other, because those are 2 teams that have their quarterbacks, allegedly, with Kyler Murray and Justin Herbert. Can you negotiate with both of them and try to get the lowest price? Because those teams, they probably are inclined to take your deal. They want to get that value because they don't need a quarterback. Chad Graff, one of my good friends, Patriots beat writer, he tossed out the possibility of New England being available for that trade. I don't know why. New England wouldn't make that pick and get their future quarterback. They signed Jacoby Brissett. To me, that's not that different from Sam Darnold. I think they need a quarterback, so I think it's got to be Arizona at number 4. And you can do it. You can do it now with 11-23 pretty easily. That might be awfully compelling to a talent-starved team like the Cardinals to get 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, and the thing is, 23-11, we can all say, everybody can say all signs point to packaging the deal to move up and get a quarterback. I think that's what everybody's hope is. If you're a GM, your whole goal in this is to swing for the fences and hope you hit a home run. But even if you swing for the fences and you hit a triple, which means you're trying, it doesn't work, and then you get 2 really good draft picks in the first round, could be, a potential quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, and then you still have 23 to go out and get something else you really need, which could be a cornerback out of Alabama, out of Penn State, could be, there's a lot of options out there. Could be, I don't think, because edge rusher was another thought people had, but I think after getting Grenard and Van Ginkel, you don't really need to worry about edge rusher right away. Could be a D tackle maybe later, but it does give you room to make some picks. Could be, I don't think you would go running back in the first round. That would be the dumbest thing ever at this point now with Aaron Jones. But I could see them making some decent picks, and you still have later round picks as well to get the running back you might need to be behind Aaron Jones or partner with Ty Chandler and Aaron Jones. That's a special, because we know Ty Chandler gives you special teams ability. But if it is to go swing for the fences to get a quarterback, I pray that it doesn't end up bad, because there are so many quarterbacks that get taken early, and then we look 4 years later, we'll be doing this show and we'll be like, oh man, remember we thought this was a great pick, and he's thrown 37 interceptions every season now. So hopefully that's not the case. Quarterback is a crapshoot, but I think going up to probably top 5 is their thought if you think about Drake May, but then there's other quarterbacks as well, the kid out of Washington. Not a huge fan of him, but if they were to draft him, I have to become a fan and hope that it works out. But I could see Drake May.
You stop that.
That's Reggie's guy. Now, Ron, why aren't you a fan? Why aren't you a fan?
I just don't like his throwing motion, but I don't like Tua's either. So Tua, has made it work with the Dolphins. So maybe Michael Penix
got something against left-handed quarterbacks.
I was about to say, is it the lefty?
You got to watch the mirror image, like reverse.
Yeah,
I know. I saw that. I saw the Tua mirror image, and he looked fine right. So yeah, maybe Michael Penix right-handed looks beautiful, and I'm just thrown off by the lefty throw. But Matt Leinart was a lefty, and he actually had pretty decent footwork and turn. Lefties, they have a different way of learning how to do everything because the world is built right-handed. Like everything in the world was built for right-handed people.
Well,
so lefties
Tua does everything else right-handed except for play quarterback.
Who, Tua?
Yeah, his dad made him a left-handed quarterback.
Yeah, everybody say he should learn how to do some stuff, play quarterback right-handed as well. But that's a totally different joke. But no, I think it is a good move by Kwesi. It keeps him in the conversation of excitement around Minnesota. It keeps him in the conversation. He's the opposite of what the Dallas Cowboys did, which is absolutely nothing. And besides sign Eric Kendricks. And so I think this gives everybody an inkling into what they can do. And also maybe somebody's going to come to him like, hey, I want 2 picks because I don't want a quarterback. So I think that's the other part is he now can kind of take his pick of what suitors don't need a quarterback who are in those early rounds. And I think that's the other key too, is he's going to be taking all these phone calls now and figuring out who wants these 2 picks and what are you willing to give me for these 2? Because just to drop back and, go up and you give 2 for 1, I don't think that's the goal. I think the goal is to maybe add in like a 3rd or 4th rounder in that too. So that you don't feel like you just gave up 2 picks and that's all you got out of it. Could be a player added to it. There's a lot that could happen, but I do like the move. Speaking of moves, free agency. It's free agent time, and we're going to talk about what we like with the Minnesota Vikings. So Julia, take it away.
I think this one, after just getting text from Reggie yesterday, because he was at the free agent pressers, Aaron Jones is going to be so fun to cover. I'm excited about just the personality that he brings. Everyone's talking about the personality hires or the personality hires at the office. If anything, he gives us the personality hire on the team. The yelling, I don't know if you guys saw it, but when Reggie and JT, our photographer, came back and showed us the video of Aaron Jones at the end, he just goes, "Skull!" And then he said he's going to do that at the end of every single presser that he does. He did also talk about, despite his time in Green Bay, he's not really worried about it. He's here to play football, do his thing, whatever. I obviously have only covered the Vikings for 2 whole seasons now, but we got a former Packer headed to the Vikings my first season in Zadarius Smith, and he was a joy to cover. So entertaining, the things that he did. Obviously, it would have been more fun if he had stayed healthy all year. But Aaron Jones gets me excited because I think there's two motivating factors just in general that come from him leaving the Packers and going to the rival team. Having a subpar season last year, how awesome would it be if he came to the Vikings and just balled out this season? I think it would. I think those are two incentives for him. You know, he wants to get back, and he wants probably to get back on his former team. So I'm excited to see what he does this year. I think we all had a lot of questions when it came to the run game, and hopefully he's got some answers.
Yeah, Julie, that's good stuff. I mean, I'm kind of caught up in this first round pick stuff too, because we'll talk about what else the Vikings can do with some of this first round movement. And I actually have a good one there. We'll bring that up in a minute. But Sam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I want to talk about the guy that's probably been overshadowed because of Jones, because of Darnold, because of Grenard, and that's Andrew Van Ginkel, who on Pro Football Focus last year was the number 8 edge rusher in all the NFL, had a career year for Miami, and they might be getting him right when he has turned the corner into a star in the league, and they got him at great value. 2 years, $20 million for elite edge rushing. That's incredible. That's a great signing by Kwesi. He's entering his physical prime, and there's one element of his game that I want to highlight. He was number 2 last year amongst edge rushers in dropping back in coverage. And in coverage, this is an edge rusher. Andrew Van Ginkel had an interception and 4 passes broken up. Passer rating against him was 54.7. So Van Ginkel feels like a perfect Flores piece. Someone who's versatile, positionless, can rush and cover. That's the whole package. Andrew Van Ginkel is the Grenard signing, that got them even, right? Because they lost Hunter. Well, Van Ginkel improves their pass rush off of last year. So I'm a big fan of that secondary piece at edge rusher that they got on the first day of the free agency period. That's a big time pickup.
Yeah, I like Blake Cashman. I think, you know, Aaron Jones is the easy person to root for or to be excited about if you're a Vikings fan. But I think Blake Cashman, like, the dude just felt like he was ready to leave the press conference, run all the way to US Bank Stadium, and just tackle whoever was around. Like, that was his energy yesterday. He was just saying he was so antsy. He was so itching to just get to it yesterday. Like, this dude is so happy to be back home playing for his hometown team. Like, I think that he is going to be motivated week in and week out to go out there and lay the smacketh down on opposing offenses. And I think he's going to be a guy that a lot of people are going to get a lot of energy from. Him and Grenard are going to be like the energy guys on the defensive side, especially in that front seven. And so when you got those two guys doing their thing, and then Van Ginkel just screaming around the corner, or maybe even dropping back in coverage, as Sam alluded to, like, I think they have some really good pieces. And you kind of think about some of the misses that they've had in the draft. You know, guys like Lewis Seen, who was a healthy scratch for most of last year. And, you know, Andrew Booth stayed healthy last year, but he didn't do exactly what you expected him to do for being a premium pick in the draft. And you got guys like Brian Asamoah who've battled some injuries and kind of got supplanted by Ivan Pace Jr. On the field a little bit. And so I think, you know, the free agency moves have kind of helped some of the ills of the draft in recent years. And this is going to continue to help them, you know, kind of move forward into Brian Flores' image in that defense. And it's just so funny. We all picked, you know, guys other than the quarterback. Sam Darnold came in yesterday and he was fine, but he just, I don't know, there was nothing really all that like exciting about him. He's happy to be here. He mentioned the time that he spent with the 49ers when he came in last year on that Monday night game, how jacked up and juiced the crowd was and how excited he is to be a part of that, and then the weapons that he has. But he wasn't fiery you know, the other guys kind of gave you fire at the opening press conference. Sam was just like, yeah, man, happy to be here, ready to go to work.
And so when I look at these free agent moves, I'm going to start first with Grenard. The reason I like him, one, I got to meet him yesterday. His wife or fiance made me feel old. I'll start off with that story first. Met her, the little baby. We were kind of in the green room hanging out before I went on to do my deal. He was getting interviewed right before me with the Vikings Entertainment Network. And so we're sitting there talking, and then I'm explaining her different cities, you know, blah, blah. We're talking about all stuff. And I'm like, yeah, Edina's like, we're the Mighty Ducks. She's like, oh, yeah, that's my mom's favorite movie. I was like, whoa, how old is your mom? She's like 45. I was like, oh, okay. So I'm that old. I'm old enough now that I could be a grandpa. So she made me feel old. I'm not going to lie. Like the 5-month-old baby is beautiful. But when I got to shake Grenard's hand, talk to him for a minute, one, I don't know if I'm shrinking or he is taller than what people are giving him credit for, because he's taller than 6'3", in my opinion. And so right away, 6'3", 260 makes you feel like a Dwight Freeney. He's not. His 6'4"-ish frame on his 260 is very slim. Like this kid can move. He's athletic. So you're not getting the like push off that you got with Danielle Hunter, but you are getting athleticism to be able to play outside linebacker. Van Ginkel the same. And watch him at Wisconsin, has a little bit of that TJ Watt mindset, not the same ability, but the mindset and how Wisconsin treated their outside backers. And so you get a guy that's truly an outside backer coming to play in a 3-4 defense, and you have another rush in who can drop back into coverage as well. So that's why I like the Grenard pick right away. Also, the fact that Blake Cashman is going to be showing around. I don't know if I could package all three. I think all three moves were great, but Blake Cashman, you know, him talking about, you know, Blake going to be able to show him around the city. And he's like, Blake's been my tour guide. And, you know, his fiance was saying that, like, yeah, we're just going to text Blake tomorrow to figure out what we're going to do. So it's just like, they are already comfortable in Minnesota and not having to sit in a hotel and be like, so what do we do? It's like, no, let's take Blake. Blake, what's got to, oh, my mom's making chicken parm. Okay, we're coming over for chicken parm, Mom. Get the meatballs. But, you know, like Blake Cashman is going to be so excited to show these guys Minnesota. And I think that's going to be the other part of this. You're right. I think Reggie said it. The energy from all those guys is going to be new to OTAs and training camp and just the youthful movement that they have there. But I really like that move. The other thing I thought about too, which is crazy, is Van Ginkel and Blake Cashman were in the same NFL draft. Both were in the 5th round. And do you know who the Vikings took instead of one of those two linebackers? 2019 NFL draft, 5th round. Anybody? Bueller went to USC. Question number 2. Went to USC. Question number 3. Has the same name as somebody on the Vikings. Question number 4. Name's Cameron. First name, Cameron.
Wait, it's not Bynum.
Nope.
2019?
Cameron Smith, linebacker out of USC.
Yeah.
So the Minnesota Vikings could have potentially thought about making a move, but I'm not going to say like, because they would have had to trade up a pick or two because Blake was taken right before they got Cameron Smith. So both were gone off the board, but maybe use the 4th round pick on one of those guys. Like clearly they graded out better than Cameron Smith. Now they did get them after Cameron Smith. And so maybe that's just take what we can get when we can get it. But if they had gone into the 4th round and taken one of those guys, they got an offensive guard in the 4th round out of Oklahoma by the name of Drew Samia. So, again, it's not this regime, totally different regime. It was a different coaching group, but that would have been nice to see if they could have gotten one of these linebackers then to be gap linebackers instead of Cam Smith. And because they didn't need Drew Samia, they could have used a Blake Cashman. And honestly, I remember that draft in 2019. That was when they should have taken Antoine Winfield. That's also when they should have taken Blake Cashman. Now, of course, people called me a homer when I put it on Twitter because they said you just want your Gopher guys to get drafted to the Vikings. Also said Tyler Johnson, too. They could have done that one. I mean, he actually did do okay for 2 years. But going back to my pick.
Class that they like didn't have anybody left after 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the group. That's pretty much the group. That's I think that was kind of Rick Spielman's like last hurrah where people were like, all right, we lost faith in this guy. But when you think about Grenard, like I really like that move there, just because of when you see his presence. Like Gabe Henderson said that he has the presence of Danielle Hunter, and he's not saying like he is Danielle Hunter. He's just saying like when he walks into a room, he's tall, he's long, he gives you eye contact, shakes hands, kind of, you know, puffs his chest out. That's what he's saying. It feels like he's confident like Daniil Hunter, and I can kind of see that. I think Garrett Bradbury actually was in that draft, Julia. He was the first round pick. So is he still the center right now?
Bradbury?
Yeah.
Yep.
He's the center.
Yep.
Okay.
He's in line. Yep.
So Garrett Bradbury is probably the last of that grouping. But they, Deebo Samuels was a second round pick in that draft. There were some picks the Vikings could have taken, but we went with Irv Smith Jr. in the second round. So nothing against that. Like that's he's a Chief now. He might win a Super Bowl. But I do like the Gennard pick. But it's time to move on because we got some more stuff to talk about. It's basketball season. Everything pointed in the direction of the Timberwolves staying in the top 4 with 17 games remaining. We're going to talk about, though, what needs to happen. Is health more important or is winning more important at this point in their playoff run? We'll talk about that and much more coming up after our read.
Brought to you today by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial, LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer.
Now it's time to move on to basketball. Sam, take it away.
Yeah, we're down to 17 games left in the NBA season. The Wolves right now are nursing their wounds. They are in kind of a mini bye week. They had 3 days off between the Clippers game and the Utah game tomorrow, and we're crossing our fingers that this team gets healthy because the injury woes and the injury scares are mounting. Now, some of them, they've dodged bullets, like when Ant has had to leave a couple times. He's come back. Naz Reid rolled an ankle. He came back. Rudy Gobert claims that he's healthy after having a rib issue on Tuesday. But, of course, they lose Karl-Anthony Towns for the rest of the season. Kyle Anderson, Monty Morris, their bench is banged up. So they've got 4, 5, 6 guys that have either had something minor or had something major. Since the All-Star break, this team is hurting. So are they realistically going to outgun the Nuggets and Thunder down the stretch? They trail them both by a game right now in the Western standings. I tend to think that you got to be content being a 3 seed as long as you get healthy. I would much rather have a healthy team as a 3 seed than have an unhealthy team as a 1 seed. And I hate to even say it, but if it means you're load managing a little bit down the stretch, I think that that's necessary. Let's think about what it represents to be a 3 seed versus a 1 seed. Might mean you have to play Phoenix or New Orleans in the first round. Might be a little scary, but also, it would have been scary as a 1 seed too, playing the Lakers or the Mavericks or the Warriors. I don't think there are easy matchups in the West, which means your seeding is probably a little bit less important. Would you love to be a 2 because then you ensure at least 2 home playoff rounds? Yes, you would. But also home court advantage, you can undo the home court advantage by simply winning one of the first 2 games on the road, and then you've got home court back in your corner. So I'm here to say, let's shift the focus on getting healthy for this team. Winning the West it would be a fun bonus, but I think more importantly, you got to have a full lineup going into the postseason.
Reggie,
they got 2 straight against the Jazz. No, so I think I get it. What's tough about the Wolves situation is they kind of just the cat injury just came out of nowhere, man, and it was troubling for a lot of Wolves fans because it doesn't take much for the trauma to really kind of just creep its way up, and that happened, and it was just like, dang. here we go again. The Wolves are cursed. All these different things people are wanting to say. But I think what's good about this Wolves team is that, I think it showed me a lot in that game against the Clippers. Yes, Kawhi went out after only like 12 minutes or whatever with the back spasms, but being down 22 and then going and getting that win, and Ant playing as well as he's playing, I think this just continues to be like the ascension of Anthony Edwards. And I understand where you're coming from, Sam, because I'm like, look, if Ant gets hurt, it continues to be these scares where you're like, oh my God, and then Ant's like, no, I'm good. We're playing. Let's go. I'm gonna drop 30, 35 on these boys. But if one of those times like he bounces down and doesn't bounce back up, I think that's going to be very troubling for the Wolves. But also I think too, Sam, that you've just been scarred from being here for so long. I think most people here, sports fans here in Minnesota that I've noticed, and I came from Cincinnati, so I get that. They were downtrodden as well, but it just seems like Minnesota sports fans just are like waiting for the worst to happen. And I want better for you guys, like I want you all to have joy and peace in your lives, in your sports fandom, and I think that's one of the things that is kind of in play with this topic. I just let the season play out. There are some winnable games on this schedule. If they get up to the 1, possibly that'd be fun. But if they're able to just stay at 3 or go up to 2 with the guys that they have who are healthy and who can remain healthy, that works too. They're gonna get Cat back because he opted for the surgery to get him back sooner. And so I think going into the playoffs, whether or not they have home court advantage or not, teams can get hot. NBA is a game of runs, and if they can just get hot and all their guys are available like they need them to be, I think this Wolves team could be dangerous in the playoffs.
Julia.
I think it's just stay afloat. Don't drop 4 spots, so you have to play in. They've got 10 home games, 7 on the road, so that's a good sign. I think the fact that Cat went with the shorter-term recovery time should give this team maybe an extra boost of let's stay afloat so that we can get this guy back when we make a deep run in the postseason. I think it's stay healthy, like you said, Sam. It's stay where you are. You don't have to strive for the top spot because the West is so tight. Your first round of the playoff it's going to be hard no matter who it is. Right now, it's just keep yourself afloat, stay on top of things. Obviously, don't go on a losing run rather than win out most of these games. But you have to take care of the players so that you can go further in the postseason. Otherwise, what's it all for in the end? So absolutely health over trying to win the West. If you can do both, I mean, of course, by all means, right? But right now they just have to focus because they do have some older guys on thing. Mike Connolly's he's going to have to sit out some games. That's just, he said it's wearing on him now that we're getting to this point in the season. He said that out loud. And you have to just give these guys the breaks that they need, and you have to be strategic in the breaks that you give guys too. And also we talked about the depth that this team has. They have the depth to give guys breaks and take care of themselves. Just with Nikhil's performance recently, and Nas stepping up with Cat gone too. They've proven themselves to be reliable when it comes down to it. So absolutely let the guys get healthy. Just don't completely tank these last 17, but it's a good thing that they have 10 of those at home at least.
Yeah, for me, just really quick, the way I look at it is I really don't care about winning. I would rather have health. So I'm leaning towards health. I'm leaning towards load management. And here's why. I theoretically, and now we don't know who's going to be the 1 and 2 or because 3. I mean, the Timberwolves could fight their way back. I mean, they're 1 game back and the Timberwolves or the Nuggets and the Thunder are tied. But here's the scenario right now. If I were to choose right now, if I wanted to be the 3 or the 4, I don't know if you guys have looked at this. I would rather be the 4. And the only reason why is because right now as the 4, your way to the Western Conference Final is Thunder, Pelicans, or the possible 7-8 winner, which could be Lakers, Warriors, or Mavs and Suns. I'm guessing it's going to be the Mavs, Warriors, or Lakers. I don't think the Suns lose to the Mavs. So I think the Suns are going to drop into the 7, which means the Suns get to play the Nuggets, who can potentially knock them off. And then the Kings would play the Clippers, who would be the 3. The Timberwolves would play the Pelicans as the 4 or 5, which I like that matchup. And then the Thunder would play the Lakers or Warriors, which I like the Timberwolves' chances against any of those 3, Warriors, Lakers, or Thunder, over having to face the Nuggets early on after you win your first round. So that's just why I go for health, because I'm looking at, I think the 4 seed is a better path than having to deal with the Kings, the Nuggets, the Suns, and then it would be the Clippers would be in that other one. I would much rather face the other teams at the top, which are the Thunder, and then you get the Pelicans, and then the potential play-in team, which is going to be the Lakers, Mavs, or Warriors. That's why I say health over winning, because I think if you come into that healthy, you can get through that. If you win, no matter what seed you get, if you're not healthy, you're going to be knocked out, because they need everybody down the stretch of this. And we've seen that because it's 7 games. And so you have to be healthy to be, and this maybe you sweep in 4, but you're going to need all your guys. And that's why, I mean, Cat is probably a no-go until the second round, but you're going to need Rudy Gobert, and you for sure need Ant. You need a healthy Naz Reid. You need a healthy Mike Conley. I would do a little load management looking at that and just kind of play that game of like, hey, 4 seed's not as bad, and dropping to the 5 probably doesn't happen. But because of where they are, and so I think the 3 or the 4, I'm picking the 4 over the 3. Now, getting to the 1, that's a chance, but far chance, because you still got the Nuggets and the Thunder right there. I'd rather drop below the Clippers and be the 4. But that's just my take on that. We got to move on. When you think about this basketball, we've kind of talked about it. I'm going to give Reggie his just due. Our question coming up in this one, people, in segment 2 or question 4, we want to look at the first round matchup. I just kind of gave you my ideas of the 3 teams I would rather play, but of those 3 teams, so if we're looking at those 3 teams, if the Timberwolves some way, somehow find a way to get to the number 1 seed, who would I rather face, or least likely? I would least likely, I'm going to be honest, I would least likely like to play the Lakers. The only reason of that, and I'm talking about, I'm not saying everybody. If we're going everybody, I probably don't want to play the Suns, but I don't know if that could happen if they're the 2 and the Suns drop down. I really don't want to play the Suns because Kevin Durant is an absolute matchup nightmare for the Timberwolves. Devin Booker, I think you can handle that with Ant. Ant showed that he could shut down a potential guard, but how much energy would Ant waste where you'd have to find a couple guys to deal with Devin Booker? But Kevin Durant is an absolute nightmare to deal with. But I would much rather play the Warriors than I would want to play the Lakers, because LeBron and AD are high percentage shooters, because they don't shoot outside of their where they're supposed to be, which is they get to the paint, they drive a lot, and they're going to use their strength and their body power. And it's just the star power of LeBron. I think the one person who doesn't give a crap about LeBron's star power is Anthony Edwards, but you don't know what you're going to get from the rest of the team. And that's why the Lakers, for me, of those 3, Lakers, Warriors, Mavs, I don't want to play the Lakers in that. I think the Mavs are dysfunctional with Kyrie and Luka. I don't think it's going to work long term. And then the Warriors just don't have it anymore. They are not who they tried to trade for LeBron. We found out at the trade deadline, and LeBron's agent didn't want to do it. So I would much rather play. I do not want to play the Lakers if that's my choices. What do you think, Julia?
So when I write my notes out for podcasts, I always like to be prepared. I write as I think things in my head. And my first note is, first of all, you don't want to see LeBron in the postseason. So I agree with you there, Ron. I say, like we just talked about, the West is so stacked. It's going to be what the Timberwolves talked about in their media day this year is we just want to get past the first round. I think Mavs may be an easier matchup than a lot of the options that they have, but most of all, I think it's just it would be scary to see the Lakers in the first round. The Suns, yeah, I could see how that could pose potential problems for them, but and I think you're right in saying that the Warriors are a lot less scary than I think that their name holds too. But most of all, I just think like you just never know what you're going to get with the experience that guy brings to that team on his own. It would be very cool to see, but I think that is one of the biggest threats you could have no matter where the Lakers end up at the end of the season. It's just once everyone goes back to a record of 0-0, that's when things start to get real, and the Wolves could potentially show their lack of playoff experience against a team like that, I think. What do you think, Reg?
Okay, yeah. So I'm with Ron on this one. You don't want to play the Lakers, and also if you saw what happened to the Lakers, you don't want to play the Kings either. Like those two teams are scary, and also too, like you get to the postseason and you got a healthy and motivated Luka and Kyrie. You don't necessarily want to play the Mavs either. So like I think give me the Warriors all day, every day. You want a frustrated Draymond Green, ready to choke Rudy Gobert out again. And you want to see that happen because, they understand that they're outmatched when they get on the court against the Timberwolves. And so that's really the target matchup for me. I think it's scary hours when you think about, do I think they can beat the Lakers in a series? Sure. But I think you don't really want that to happen. If you can avoid it, I think you try to.
True.
I've got a couple items here, Ron, that might change your mind on the Pelicans being a favorable matchup. So over the last 2 years, the Timberwolves are 0-3 against the Pelicans when Zion plays. In those games, Zion has scored 43, 27, and 36, averaging 35 points a game while shooting 64.4%. He's a Timberwolves killer. Bad matchup. And the Pelicans are kind of a wagon. Like when they're healthy, which isn't all the time, Zion could go down any minute. But they've got a better point differential than both the Nuggets and the Clippers. So I am sneaky worried about the Pelicans. If you fall to 4, currently Pelicans are 5, that could change. That's not a team I'd want to play. So avoid Zion at all costs.
The only thing I'll say is Zion in downtown Minneapolis. I mean, you got Monte Carlo and the wings. You got all the food places. You got not Krispy Kreme. What's the other one? What's the Cinnabon? Like we can make it worth his while. Send him over to Manny's.
You act like he doesn't live in the foodie city. Come on.
Exactly.
He's not going to be.
But see, there he has like a team of people who know not to serve him. In Minnesota, they're going to lather it up here. They're going to make sure he's got the extra dressing for the wings, have a little cocktail, put a little extra drizzle on his Cinnabon in Minnesota. In New Orleans, they're taking care of him. Like, hey, you don't need that extra. Put that meatball down.
No, they're not. No one says that in New Orleans.
But we got to talk about basketball. Women's basketball is doing something this year that men's basketball wish they could do, which is dominate the headlines and actually get people on Twitter talking about them. Nobody's even talking about men's basketball on Twitter. That's how sad it is right now. Women's basketball is absolutely dominating the headlines, and I love it. I got 2 daughters, so I'm all for it. But we're going to talk about that and the Gophers and give them a grade really quick before we get out of here. But we got a word from our sponsors.
Brought to you today by FanDuel. March Madness is on the horizon. I can't wait. But if your bracket gets busted early, you can still enjoy the games with FanDuel. They're letting you bet on every single game of the tournament, or you can bet on a future champion before the tournament starts as well. New customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. America's #1 sportsbook has done it again with this new promotion. $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins, and then you can put that on the point spreads, the money lines, the over-unders, or the future champions. FanDuel.com/locked on, FanDuel.com/locked on. Bet on your favorite 14 seeds to pull the upset at FanDuel, and you can bet at FanDuel until they cut down the nets.
Well, now really quick before we get out of here, let's give our grades first. We talk about the women's and men's basketball, but really quick, women's and men's basketball grades, rapid fire. What do you give the Gophers men's and what do you give the Gophers women's? I'll start with you, Julia.
Okay, men's. I give them I'm going to go B+ because this season was exactly what Ben Johnson told us it would be, minus losing in the first round of the Big Ten tournament yesterday. If they had won yesterday, I probably would give them an A-. But the turnaround that we saw with the season this year was, worth talking about. Dawn Plitzaway, I give her a B-, I would say, because, it's her debut season, but I think we have seen a lot of turnaround with this team. I think there's a lot of work to do, but she was kind of handed the team that she got this year, and I think she has plans that we'll see more outcomes from next year. I don't know if that's the right word that I'm looking for, but I think she has plans, and I think we'll see them move forward more next year once she's able to kind of put her claws in a little bit more. I'm excited for what she'll do with the program, but give it a B- because not a great season for them either, and they got completely demolished by a few guys.
Reggie.
Yeah, I'll give the Gopher men a B-. I want to give them more, but there were some games I felt like that they should have won or taken advantage of in this season, and they didn't do that. That being said, I like what Ben is doing, building this program up in year 3. As Julia said, he talked about it. He wanted to get his guys in there. He wanted people to, take a chance on that program and give them some grace to do what he had to do, because that was just a bad program he inherited. And I think things are going up. That being said, I hope that he can keep the team together, get maybe some more pieces in there, and they can go a little further next year so they can win some of these. The last several games that they lost, you just like, dang, like those were games that you expect them to win, being on the come up like that, but they missed opportunities there. And then the women, I'll give the women a C+. I think what's tough about it is they were trending towards being a tournament team until Mara went down, and then the booty fell out. Like it was it. And so I think that was the tough part about that. A lot of people were like, look, one player shouldn't have affected the outcomes as much as they did, but man, they had some games where they were just absolutely blown out. And that was just unfortunate. But I think that Dawn is going to turn the program around, and they're going to have better days ahead. This was just a tough one.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go really quick, but I'm going to give both of them like a C grade. The only reason is I look at the final product. The women's finished 16-15, but their last 10 games, they were 2-8. Men's, I mean, if I had to do it, I would say the men's are a C+ and the women's are a C-, because the men did have a better finish down the stretch than the women did, but both still 2-8. The men's were 2-8 as well, but the men did finish like bottom 5, where the women finished bottom 4, 18-4 and 16-15. A little bit better record, but both to me seem like average. It's a C grade for both of them, in my opinion. I do give Ben a little bit of an edge because of some of the teams he knocked off and beat. Should have beat Michigan State in this last one. You beat them last time they came to Minneapolis, and this time you just could not hold on and get it done in the stretch. I mean, in the first half, they were 3 for 11 in 3-point shooting. They got to find, like, whether it's Cam Christie or whatever, I don't know. You got to find somebody that can knock down the shot. Or is it Max Christie? Cam might be the brother. Max Christie might be with the Gophers.
Yeah, Max is in the NBA.
Max is in the NBA. So Cam, you got to be able to knock down shots though. And other than that, that's it. I think they both did subpar, but definitely not worth losing their jobs. I think the goal is you build on from what they started, and they did a great job. But I'm Ron Johnson. That's Julia Daniels. That's Reggie Wilson. That's Sam Ekstrom. And the reason we'll talk about this later too, because the men's and women's tournament is coming. So stick around next week or come back next week to hear about it, because the women are doing something the men aren't doing, which is they're capitalizing on the excitement of the tournament. I would rather do a women's bracket right now than I would do a men's, but that's just me. Again, I'm Ron Johnson, Julia Daniels, Reggie Wilson from KARE 11, and then Sam Ekstrom, our producer. I want to thank you guys. Have a great one, and make sure you tune into YouTube 24/7. Go to our YouTube channel, just search Locked On Sports Minnesota on YouTube and subscribe.